Welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. Today we're going to look at your thoughts on whether power meters should be banned in pro cycling. We've got the latest round of the CycloCross World Cup in the Czech Republic, the DVV Trophy. We're going to discuss new teams and new contracts, and also the Gent 6 Day. We'll start though by briefly looking at your thoughts on power meters. Now this is something that the UCI and ASO have recently been strongly considering banning, and so Jon Cannings asked the riders their thoughts on this subject over at the Saitama Criterium in Japan.
I'm not so sure it's about power meter. I think they're just a bit sick and tired of us winning, aren't they? I
think now we're so used to the power meters that it will be strange not to use them, but...
Punto de vista, el potenciómetro limita más el espectáculo que el pinganillo. ¿Por qué?
So the riders are pretty unanimous in their opinion, with only Contador saying that he thought they should be banned. It also seems that most of you are in agreement with the majority of riders. For example, Zachary Montalto reckons that banning the power meter won't do anything to change the races and that the UCI should instead make it mandatory that teams release the data from their riders. Dave Gearing reckons that if teams share data with viewers and other teams, it should liven things up. DFW Ken says that seeing the power they do is inspiring. And Stephen Butler says they need to go the other way and share power data and GPS with broadcasters to help make them more engaging. And I think your opinion has changed my opinion, to be honest. I had thought that a ban in the mountains might see things change, but I guess that riders are now so in tune with their effort levels that not seeing their power in mountain stages is unlikely to suddenly provoke a lot of attacking. The real issue though, I think, is that the UCI are trying to progress the sport by taking us back 15 to 20 years. And by doing this, they are further alienating themselves from riders and teams. Instead, as a whole host of you have suggested in the comment section under that video, we should be looking for ways to embrace the data available and use it to progress the sport in a way that is more beneficial to the viewing public. Speaking of the UCI, we also had a comment under that video from Thomas who said, "Between this nonsense and sock length enforcement, I'm worried this sport is losing the plot." Which leads us nicely onto a discussion about the new sock length rule, doesn't it? Very exciting stuff. This is something that has been reintroduced by the UCI. So next year, they are going to be strictly imposing the rule that states a rider's sock height must not exceed the midpoint of the lateral malleolus and the fibular head, or the ankle and knee to you and I. This announcement caused a number of people to question whether the UCI are really concentrating on the important issues facing the sport. I mean, who really cares about sock length? Certainly not triathletes and probably not many cycling fans either. Right, before we get on to cyclocross, we're going to have a quick interlude now to promote our limited edition Black Friday range. I'm sporting one of the t-shirts now. We're very proud of this because we as the presenters have designed this kit and we think we've done a rather good job. So we have the t-shirt that I'm wearing, we've got long sleeve t-shirts, they're available with the gold and indeed the silver livery. We've also got the GCN fan kit, so jersey also with the gold here, cycling cap or casquette and the socks too, and there's a special offer on that bundle. Special prices but the same quality as usual, and you've got until the 28th of November to take advantage of those prices. So get over to shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com if you'd like to order any of that. Right, let's get on to cyclocross now, and on a technical course for the fourth round of the UCI CX World Cup in Tabor in the Czech Republic, Mathieu Van der Poel was once again on top form, pulling clear just after the first quarter of the race. Van der Poel will have many happy memories on this circuit, having won a world and a European title there over the last 3 years. And in second place, it was Michael Vanthourenhout, whilst world champion Wout van Aert had an off day, finishing down in 7th. In the women's race, Lucinda Brand of Team Sunweb came across the line ahead of the rest to claim her first win in a round of the UCI World Cup. Second place on the day went to newly crowned European champion Anne-Marie Wurst of Stalart's 777. Wurst, though, claimed that she didn't hear the bell to signal the final lap of the race. And to be fair, they did use some kind of electronic beeper there rather than the traditional bell. However, she did make up for it the following day, though, winning the Flandrian Cross DVV Trophy in Hammer ahead of world champion Sanne Cant. In the men's race there, surprise, surprise, Mathieu Van der Poel led from start to finish. However, on this occasion, he did appear to spend all but the final lap riding in assistance of Tom Meusen. Yes, you could be forgiven for thinking that Van der Poel has no teammates, but when he has a chance, he does help them out. Van der Poel did accelerate to victory with just over a lap left to race, distancing himself from Meusen, who maintained his second position on the day. Meusen actually also clawed back 1 minute and 45 seconds of his 4-minute deficit in the overall series classification from Toon Aerts, who finished in 8th, the overall classification being done on time rather than points. Incidentally, Van der Poel came under fire this week from the Flemish cyclocross and road racing legend Roger de Vlaming, who said, "Van der Poel makes cyclocross kaput." To which Van der Poel simply responded, "I train to win, not to create suspense," which is fair enough, isn't it? In fact, let's go through some of the comments that you left underneath last week's Racing News Show, where we asked, is Van der Poel killing cyclocross? Well, in the poll, 85% of you said no, he isn't, and it seems that most of you are loving watching his dominant displays of skill and power. So, for example, D5295 just enjoys Mathieu Van der Poel's power and technique and crushing everyone else. Van der Poel is the only reason that Yanai Sabar watches cyclocross, whilst Mauro Tuten only started watching cyclocross because of Van der Poel. David Tuttle was one of the few who has been put off, saying, "I prefer to watch women's racing because yes, 1 or 2 laps, then meh for the men." Now, most of the comments last week, though, focused on Ollie's hair. And I can see why too. I've got absolutely no idea what was going on there, but I did chuckle at this from John Matthews in particular. Why is Ollie's hair trying to escape his head? I think I've got the answer. It's probably through embarrassment. Right, on to the road now, and the demise of Team Aqua Blue Sport gets messier and messier as the weeks go on. Last week, Andy Fenn, one of the riders who doesn't appear to have found a new contract yet, wrote an open letter to the team principals Rick Delaney and Tom Timmerman, outlining the frustrations he has had in trying to recoup his salary for the final part of the season. Riders and staff are apparently still missing salaries from September and are also having to continually chase their wages through the UCI, who had apparently failed to inform the riders and need to supply more completed paperwork. Team CEO Tim Timmerman has since resigned and publicly vented his frustration that his riders have publicly vented their frustration. I have to say, it's a real shame to see what basically promised to be such a good project end in the way that it has. Now, one of the riders who has thankfully now found a new home for next year is the current Irish national road champion and breakaway specialist supreme Conor Dunn. He's signed with the Israel Cycling Academy, which must have come as a huge relief after a long wait from August to mid-November. So well done to you, Conor. Meanwhile, Mark Madio continues his commitment to young riders with the launch of a Groupama FDJ La Conti development squad, touting a very international lineup, mainly of under-23 riders. The team will be run under the management of the now disbanded BMC development squad, who ran a very successful program themselves. Let's give the UCI now a pat on the back though, shall we? Because they've also introduced some welcome new rules to women's cycling. So the minimum wage for riders in World Tour teams next year is going to be €15,000. The aim being to raise that gradually so that by 2023 it will be the equivalent of the men's Pro Conti minimum salaries. World Tour riders will now also be entitled to maternity pay, 3 months full pay and 5 months half pay, which I think we can all agree is a step in the right direction. This, I will admit, is starting to feel a little bit like the UCI race show, but they've also allowed Wout van Aert to start searching for a new home for the 2019 season, a home that is very likely to be Lotto NL Jumbo. You'll probably remember, but he was being used this year as a bargaining chip between the acting agent of his team, Sniper Cycling, and almost any other team that they could attempt to do business with. Wout van Aert basically had enough. He broke his contract with the team in September and started the cyclocross season as an individual rider. Unfortunately for him, despite that UCI ruling, it appears a long legal battle will still ensue. On to the road again now, and having announced his retirement this summer, Simon Gerrans has now revealed what his post-racing career will involve. He will be entering the London office of the Goldman Sachs securities team whilst on an athlete internship. A world away from bike racing, that's for sure. Meanwhile, over at the Gent 6 Day, the lead changed every single night for the first 3 nights, but the final overall was clinched by the quick-step pairing of Elia Viviani and Ilio Kesa, with the final overall result coming down to the very last sprint on the very last night. Robert Hayes and Kenny de Ketteler pushed the leaders right to the end, missing out in the end by just 8 points after 6 nights of intense competition. And finally, speculation continues as to whether Andrea Tafi will race next year's Paris-Roubaix. The latest speculations come from La Gazzetta dello Sport, who have said that Tafi could be racing for Team Dimension Data in 2019. I'm sure there'll be more on that again next week. Right, that is all for now. Next week, we'll be back with all the news from the world of pro bike racing, including the next round of the UCI CycloCross World Cup over in Koksijde. I will see you then. In the meantime, if you'd like a unique insight into a lucrative world of racing that gets very little coverage here in the Western world, check out the video just down here from Jon Cannings looking at Keirin racing in Japan.